Welcome to the Deep Dive. It's June 28th, 2026, and I am so glad you are joining us today because we have a truly fascinating mission ahead of us.
We really do. This one is, it's incredibly unique compared to what we usually look at.
Right, because, usually when we talk about a medical diagnosis, there's this, expectation of precision, right? It feels like engineering.
Oh, exactly. It's very cut and dry.
Yeah, like you break your arm, the x-ray shows that jagged white line on a black background, and the doctor just points to it and says, there it is. That's the fracture.
It's binary. I mean, you are either dealing with intact bone or broken bone. And that binary nature is actually deeply comforting to the human mind.
Yeah, we like to see the problem.
Right. We like our damage to be visible, measurable, and, easily categorized into neat little boxes.
But then you step into the world of psychology, and specifically the world of psychological manipulation. And suddenly, that x-ray machine is completely useless.
Oh, entirely useless.
You can't just put a broken sense of reality on a light box. So we're looking at a diagnostic landscape that is entirely invisible.
It is the absolute definition of diagnostic muddy waters. And, the invisibility of the damage is actually the primary weapon of the person causing it.
Because you can't prove it.
Exactly. If you can't objectively prove you're injured, it's very easy for someone to convince you that you're just, imagining the pain entirely.
Which is exactly why today's source material is so incredibly rare and, frankly, valuable for you listening.
Yeah.
We aren't looking at a peer-reviewed psychology journal today.
Right.
And we aren't reading a memoir. We actually have our hands on a complete production package and script for a video essay. And the title of this video essay is How Gaslighting Destroys Your Confidence.
And when we say production package, we really mean the whole thing.
Yeah, the literal blueprint. We have the narrator's script, the director's notes on pacing, the visual prompts, the audio cues, the works.
And this format, it forces a kind of structural honesty that you honestly don't always get in academic papers. By looking at a production package, we are looking at the literal engineering of emotional abuse.
It's step by step.
Yeah, we get to see how this writer deconstructs the dismantling of a human mind beat by beat, using both language and sensory cues to explain, the actual mechanics of the trap.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because our mission for you today is to look at those exact mechanics. We hear the word gaslighting thrown around all the time on social media.
Constantly. It's become a huge buzzword.
Right. People use it to describe, a friend lying about where they got dinner or a celebrity PR spin. But we want to bypass the buzzwords today. We want to understand exactly how confidence is dismantled on a structural, functional level.
The most compelling aspect of this text to me is its coldness.
Coldness. How so?
Well, it strips away the melodrama that is typically associated with toxic relationships. It forces us to look at the gears turning underneath manipulation. It treats psychological abuse as a mechanical process with predictable inputs and outputs.
So let's look at the very first gear in that machine, which involves redefining what we even mean when we talk about confidence. Because the script opens by stating, and I'm quoting here, confidence doesn't mean feeling good about yourself. That's the version people sell you.
And that distinction challenges a massive multi-billion-dollar industry.
Oh, the self-help industry.
Exactly. We have built an entire culture around self-esteem, this idea that confidence is about positive affirmations, power posing, looking in the mirror and saying you are smart and capable.
Right, the whole I am enough, sticky notes on the bathroom mirror thing.
Yeah. But this text makes a crucial, very clinical distinction. Real confidence isn't about self-love.
No, the script actually calls real confidence quieter and far more load-bearing. It defines it as your ability to trust your own perception of reality.
Your perception of reality, yes.
It's the ability to look at a situation, observe the facts, and just know what happened without needing anyone else's permission or validation.
And the text insists that gaslighting doesn't attack self-esteem first. It attacks the mechanism underneath the mechanism.
Which makes sense when you really break it down.
It does. Think about the logic here. If someone attacks your self-esteem directly, like if they call you ugly or stupid or untalented, you can actually fight back against that.
Because you have a baseline.
Right. You have a baseline of reality to push off from. You can think, well, I know I'm not stupid because I just solved this incredibly complex problem at work yesterday.
You have evidence.
Exactly. You have evidence. And crucially, you have the cognitive ability to weigh that evidence. But if an abuser attacks the mechanism that allows you to perceive reality in the first place, they don't even need to attack your self-esteem.
Wow. Wait, so the self-esteem just collapses on its own.
Yes, it collapses as a secondary symptom because you can no longer trust the evidence of your own competence.
The way I was visualizing this as I read through the text was like building a house.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, so self-esteem is the interior decorating.
Yeah.
It's the paint on the walls, it's the expensive furniture, the art you hang up. It's what makes the house look good and feel good to live in, right?
Right.
But trusting your own reality, that is the load-bearing foundation. It's the concrete slab.
And the interior decor is entirely dependent on the structural integrity of that concrete.
Exactly. You can have all the outward success in the world. You could be a CEO, you can have a brilliant intellect, you can have the best therapist helping you pick out the absolute fanciest interior decor imaginable. But if someone goes into the basement and takes a sledgehammer to that load-bearing foundation, the whole house falls.
It doesn't matter how nice the furniture is.
Right. The expensive couch doesn't stop the ceiling from caving in.
That analogy perfectly explains why the script specifically notes that smart, highly successful people are just as vulnerable to this form of manipulation.
Yeah, there's this massive stigma, isn't there?
There really is. There's a persistent victim-blaming myth in our culture that only weak or gullible people fall for gaslighting. But outward success is just the interior decorating.
Yeah.
A CEO's reality perception mechanism, their concrete foundation, is built out of the exact same cognitive materials as anyone else's.
And the creator of this video really drives this home with the visual directions in this opening section.
The compass.
Yes, the compass. The prompt for the screen is a symbolic close-up of a compass with a cracked glass face resting on a dark charcoal surface. And it specifies there are no hands touching it, just the broken compass.
Think about the function of a compass. It is a purely objective instrument. It doesn't tell you if you're a good navigator.
Right.
It doesn't boost your ego or tell you that you're making good life choices. It provides one raw piece of data, true north. It simply tells you where you are in physical space.
It gives you the baseline of reality.
Exactly. Gaslighting breaks the compass. It doesn't necessarily tell you that you are bad at walking. It shatters the glass and scrambles the magnetic pull so you can no longer orient yourself.
And once you can't find north,
You become completely dependent on the manipulator.
that's
They become your only source of direction.
But that raises a massive question. If this compass is our ability to perceive reality, how exactly does our brain build that reality in the first place?
That's the real core of it.
Right, because if someone tries to hand me a broken compass, my first instinct should be to throw it away. But according to this script, the brain uses two very specific inputs to build its internal model of the world.
Yes. The writer breaks down the architecture of human reality into what they call a dual verification system.
Okay, dual verification.
Your brain constructs reality out of two main inputs. First, what you observe directly with your own senses, and second, what trusted people confirm back to you.
Observation and confirmation. Okay, so, I see that the traffic light is red. My friend in the passenger seat also sees that the traffic light is red. Our inputs match, so reality feels solid.
Exactly. And most of the time, those two inputs agree perfectly. So we never even think about the fact that we are relying on a secondary verification system. We just assume our perception is reality.
But there's a vulnerability there.
A massive one.
Yeah.
The vulnerability is introduced when those two inputs conflict. When you see a red light, but the person you trust most in the world turns to you and says with complete conviction, that light is green.
And this is where I have to push back. Or will at least ask the question that I know you listening are probably yelling at your speakers right now.
Go ahead.
When a manipulator flatly denies a minor reality, say they tell you a conversation from 3 days ago never happened, why doesn't the victim's brain just immediately assume the other person is lying?
Right.
I mean, if I know what I saw and you tell me I didn't see it, my logical brain should say, wow, you're a liar.
Yeah.
Why is the default reaction to doubt oneself?
To understand that, we actually have to look at the evolutionary biology of human connection and the mechanics of cognitive dissonance.
Okay, biology. How so?
Well, the script states that accepting that someone close to you, someone you deeply love, rely on, and trust, is lying to your face on purpose is a massively difficult concept for the human brain to hold.
But why is it so difficult, though? People lie all the time.
They do, but not people you are profoundly attached to. At least not in a way your brain wants to accept. To the human nervous system, attachment is survival.
Survival.
Yes. Evolutionarily speaking, if you were cast out of the tribe, you died, you starved, or a predator got you. So the brain is hardwired to prioritize the preservation of vital social bonds above almost everything else.
Wow. Okay, so if you accept that your partner is intentionally distorting reality to control you.
The implications are catastrophic. It means the relationship isn't safe.
Right.
It means you are actively in danger. You have to reevaluate your entire safety structure. You have to admit you have been betrayed, and you likely have to face the terrifying prospect of severing that bond and leaving the relationship entirely.
That's a huge undertaking.
It requires an immense amount of cognitive and emotional energy. The amygdala, the threat detection center of your brain, would be firing on all cylinders.
So if confronting the lie is this massive energy expenditure
Yeah.
that threatens your basic survival structure, the brain basically looks for a shortcut,
Yes, and the script calls it taking the cheaper
the
option.
cheaper option.
Assuming that you just got it wrong,
Mhm.
that you misremembered the conversation, or that you were just being too sensitive, that is a lower energy, less emotionally explosive choice.
Calling it the cheaper option really frames this as an economic decision the brain is making.
Yeah.
It's like cognitive economics. You are choosing the path that burns fewer emotional calories.
And the script is very deliberate in removing the shame from this process. It points out that this isn't a character flaw, it's not a sign of weakness. It is your brain doing exactly what it was built to do: preserve the attachment to the tribe. It's just aimed at the wrong target. The prefrontal cortex, the logical part of the brain, actually constructs a narrative where you are at fault, specifically to soothe the amygdala and keep the relationship intact.
So the manipulator is essentially hacking the victim's evolutionary survival code.
Precisely.
They introduce an error, and they know the victim's brain will blame itself rather than risk destroying the bond. And the visual the script uses to illustrate this is deeply unsettling.
Oh, the double exposure.
Yes, the prompt is for two overlapping translucent silhouettes, one slightly offset and distorted as if double exposed.
That double exposure image, it perfectly captures the literal feeling of cognitive dissonance. You are attempting to hold two conflicting realities in your mind at the exact same time.
The reality you experienced.
And the reality your trusted partner is telling you happened. It creates this sickening, blurry psychological state. Your brain is desperately trying to merge the two silhouettes into one solid image, and the only way it can do that is by letting go of your own memory.
It's like that feeling of rubbing your eyes, trying to get the world to come into focus, but realizing the distortion is actually inside the lens itself.
That's a great way to put it.
But the mechanics of this distortion don't happen all at once, right?
Mm-hmm.
The creator's notes demand a complete narrative pivot right about here to explain how this actually unfolds in real life.
Yes, the pivot regarding the size of the lies.
Exactly. The script says, here's the twist almost no one sees coming. The damage isn't done by the big lies.
Which goes entirely against the popular cultural narrative we have built around gaslighting.
It really does. Think about, the movies or the thriller novels we consume. The gaslighter's always pulling off some massive cinematic scheme.
Like hiding a secret bank account.
Yeah, or they have a second family across the country, or they're trying to convince their spouse they're clinically insane to steal an inheritance. It's always huge.
But this script argues the exact opposite. It says big lies actually get caught. Big lies create physical evidence.
Because they're too big to ignore.
Exactly. A massive lie forces a reckoning because the gap between observation and confirmation becomes too large for even the cheaper option to bridge.
Right.
I mean, if someone claims they don't have a second family, but you find a marriage certificate and a photo album, cognitive dissonance can't save the relationship. The evidence is undeniable.
So what is the weapon of choice then, if it's not the big lies?
The profound danger lies in the small lie. The script states the real damage comes from lies too small to be worth fighting over.
Okay, can we ground this in a real-world scenario? Because I think this is where the theory actually hits the pavement for you listening. Let's imagine a completely mundane argument between a couple. Let's say it's overpaying the electric bill.
That's a perfect canvas for this.
Okay, so person A says, hey, the electricity got shut off. Did you pay the bill like you said you would on Monday?
Okay.
And the manipulator, person B, responds, I never said I'd pay it on Monday. I said I was completely slammed with work this week and asked if you can handle it.
A classic subtle shift.
Right. Now, person A distinctly remembers the conversation from Monday where person B explicitly promised to pay it. But person B is looking at them with total confusion, maybe a little annoyance, saying, why are you always trying to micromanage my schedule? I told you I was busy.
Let's break down the psychological beats of that exact scenario. Person A knows what they heard, but if they dig their heels in and aggressively argue that it was in fact Monday and that person B made a promise, what happens?
Well, person A starts to look like the volatile one.
Exactly.
They're escalating a relatively minor issue, a forgotten bill, into a screaming match about reality.
Precisely. The manipulator creates a scenario where the victim's natural defense mechanisms are bypassed entirely. I mean, you can't call a therapist or the police over a disagreement about who said what on Monday.
No, of course not.
And if you complain to your friends about it, you sound pedantic and, well, overly dramatic. The manipulator has weaponized the petty.
Oh, that's a great phrase. Weaponize the petty. Because if you defend yourself against a petty lie, you become petty.
And that is the brilliance of the trap. The script hits the nail on the head with this line. You never build a case against something you decided wasn't worth noticing.
Wow.
In that electric bill scenario, person A's brain runs the cost-benefit analysis. Is it worth a massive relationship-ending fight to prove I'm right about a passing comment made 3 days ago?
No.
No. So they apologize, pay the late fee, and let it go.
They take the cheaper option.
Exactly.
But every single time they let it slide, they accept a tiny hairline fracture in their reality compass. And this is perfectly mirrored in the audio-visual integration the director calls for.
The mirror.
Yeah. The script asks for an extreme close-up of a single hairline crack spreading silently across a dark mirror. And the sound effect note says, subtle glass crack sound, low and brief, not jarring, more felt than heard.
More felt than heard. That sensory detail is the clinical reality of chronic invalidation. It isn't a loud explosion of overt abuse. You don't get punched in the face.
Right.
It is a subtle shift in the atmosphere. It's a quiet sigh of disappointment from your partner, a slight rewriting of history that you feel as a knot in your gut before your conscious brain can even process what just happened.
But the crack is there.
Yes. Once that hairline crack is there, the structural integrity of the glass is permanently altered.
So you have all these tiny cracks accumulating, hundreds of them over weeks, months, or years. The electric bill on Monday, the slightly altered tone of voice on Thursday, the rewritten dinner plans on Saturday. What happens when they finally shatter the glass entirely?
That brings us to a terrifying structural shift in the script.
Right, because the manipulator actually achieves their ultimate goal here.
This is the phase the script refers to as deepening. And the most insidious part of this phase is that the manipulator's physical presence actually becomes irrelevant.
Irrelevant? Wait, how can the abuser be irrelevant to the abuse?
The text describes a shift where the victim stops waiting for the manipulator to gaslight them and starts doing it to themselves automatically.
Oh, the script calls it the second voice.
Yes, the second voice.
It outlines this scenario where you have a completely natural reaction to something. Say someone cuts you off in traffic or a coworker takes credit for your project, and you feel a flash of justified anger.
Very normal.
Right. But instantly, before you've even fully processed that anger, a second voice kicks in your own head and says, are you overreacting? Are you remembering the project timeline right? Are you just being difficult and toxic again?
The phrasing from the text here is devastating. That second voice used to be theirs. Now it's yours. They installed it, and now it runs without them in the room.
Installed it.
Yes. In clinical psychology, we refer to this process as introjection.
Interjection. What is the literal mechanism of that? How does that work?
Introjection is a process where a person internalizes the ideas, voices, or behaviors of other people. We actually do this naturally as children. We internalize our parents' voices to learn right from wrong.
Okay, like if you reach for a hot stove.
Exactly. If you reach for a hot stove, you hear your mother's voice saying no in your head, and you stop. It's a survival mechanism.
Right.
But gaslighting weaponizes introjection in an adult brain. The constant repetitive invalidation essentially overwrites your internal monologue. The abuser's voice replaces your own critical thinking.
The way the script frames it, they installed it, makes me think of a malicious piece of software. It's like inadvertently downloading a computer virus.
That's a very accurate analogy.
But it's not just any virus. It's a virus that specifically targets and disables your computer's antivirus system. And the truly insidious part is that the virus disguises itself as a critical system update. You think you're just being highly self-reflective? You think you're being a good partner by rigorously questioning your own flaws? But actually, your diagnostic software has been hijacked.
That software analogy works perfectly to explain the central paradox that outsiders always stumble over.
What paradox?
Well, when people from the outside look at a toxic or abusive relationship, they invariably ask what the script rightly calls the useless question.
Oh, why didn't you just leave?
Why didn't you just leave? It's a question based on a fundamental misunderstanding of the injury. If we use your virus analogy, asking someone why they didn't leave is like asking a computer why it didn't use its antivirus software to delete the malware.
It can't. The antivirus is the exact thing that has been dismantled.
Leaving a relationship requires trusting your own judgment. It requires looking at the evidence, concluding that the situation is fundamentally harmful, and trusting that conclusion enough to take drastic action.
But your judgment is gone.
Your judgment is the very faculty that has been taken offline. The second voice is constantly running background programs saying, "You're exaggerating, they didn't mean it, you're the one who caused the fight." You cannot use a broken compass to find your way out of the woods.
You just end up walking in tighter and tighter circles.
Exactly.
And what makes this section of the text so haunting is what it reveals about the aftermath. The damage doesn't evaporate just because the relationship finally ends or because the manipulator moves on to someone else.
The internal auditor stays.
Yeah.
The text points out a tragic misconception that the problem walks out the door when the gaslighter leaves. But that installed software, that interjected second voice, has become a part of your neural architecture. It shows up in your next relationship.
It shows up in your next job.
It rents space in your head indefinitely.
And the visual the creator uses here is practically a horror movie setup, but it's happening inside a person's everyday reality.
The corridor.
Yeah. The prompt is, solitary figure walking down a long, empty corridor. A faint chain-like shadow trails behind with no visible source. And the audio is just this faint, low whisper, a reverb texture acting as that internalized second voice.
It's psychological horror because the monster isn't chasing you. It's narrating your life from inside your own mind.
Gosh.
It causes you to quietly second-guess every instinct you have, every boundary you try to set. You become terrified of your own perceptions.
Which sets up the gravity of the script's climax.
Yeah.
The tone shifts noticeably here. The director's notes say to slow down noticeably and to let every sentence breathe.
The pacing is crucial here.
The background music strips away to almost nothing, just a single sustained low tone. And we hit a section that the writer has titled The Hardest Truth.
And there's a huge paradox here. If the goal of the manipulator is power and control, you'd naturally assume they need to continually exert that control. You'd think they would never stop manipulating.
Right.
But the script argues the exact opposite.
It claims the ultimate victory is actually stopping. The script reads, the most successful gaslighters don't actually need to keep gaslighting forever. After enough time, they can stop. They can be reasonable, even kind, and the damage still holds.
If we synthesize everything we've unpacked today, the load-bearing foundation, the cheaper option, the tiny hairline cracks, the interjection of the second voice, this is the horrifying, logical end state of that entire mechanical process.
What is?
The abuser has achieved obsolescence. They have automated the abuse.
Automated the abuse. That is a chilling phrase.
Because it's no longer a dynamic of a victim arguing with a manipulator. It is the person sitting completely alone in a room, auditing themselves, scrutinizing their own memories, doing the manipulator's job for them, for free, indefinitely.
Wow.
The manipulator can sit back and act perfectly normal, even magnanimous, because the victim's internal programming is doing all the heavy lifting of subjugation.
And the script emphasizes that this isn't some poetic metaphor or like dramatic exaggeration. It explicitly states that's just what chronic invalidation does to a nervous system, given enough time.
It crosses the line from a psychological behavioral pattern into a physiological reality.
Wait, physiological, it changes the brain physically.
That is the crux of the trauma. The human nervous system is highly plastic. It adapts to its environment to ensure survival. If your daily environment requires you to constantly suppress your own reality to avoid conflict, your brain will physically hardwire those neural pathways.
Oh man, so it's neuroplasticity working against you.
Exactly. The brain optimizes for whatever you do most often. If you frequently doubt yourself, the synaptic connections for self-doubt become thick and fast. It becomes an autonomic response.
Like a reflex.
Exactly like a reflex. No different than flinching when someone suddenly raises a hand near your face. You don't consciously decide to flinch. Your nervous system bypasses your conscious thought to protect you. The self-doubt becomes a physical reflex.
The visual for this climax is just an empty chair in a dim room under a single low light source, a solitary seated silhouette. There is no second figure anywhere in the frame.
Just the victim.
Just the victim. And the audio is just a faint, slow heartbeat. It conveys utter, profound isolation. You are trapped in the room with the ghosts they left behind.
It is a deeply sobering image. It forces the audience to look at the sheer vandalism of this kind of manipulation. It isn't just a bad relationship, it is the systematic dismantling of a person's cognitive autonomy.
Okay, I have to pause here. Because if I'm listening to this right now, I'm feeling a tremendous amount of weight.
It's heavy.
If the damage is this deep, if it actually alters your neural pathways and installs an automated internal auditor that operates as a physical reflex, that leaves us with a terrifying problem.
How do you fix it?
Yeah, how do you ever get it out? Is it permanent? You can't just wish away a reflex.
That is the pivotal question of the entire piece.
Yeah.
Structurally, the creator knows they have led the audience into a very dark, very clinical basement.
Yeah, we're definitely in the basement right now.
The audience needs to know if there is a way out, which brings us to the final major section of the script.
The script builds in a specific section titled The Refrain. The director's note says the vocal delivery should become warmer, more direct.
It's a tonal shift.
Right. And the text explicitly states that knowing this mechanism, scaring directly at the cold, hard engineering of the abuse we just spent all this time dissecting, shouldn't make you feel hopeless. It should actually be the catalyst for recovery.
This section reveals the creator's true purpose in explaining the mechanics so thoroughly. It's about the power of terminology.
Terminology.
The script insists that the audience understands something fundamental. The self-doubt you are experiencing was never about your intelligence. It was never about a lack of emotional strength. It is not a verdict on your core identity as a human being.
The text frames it perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
It says the self-doubt isn't a personality trait. It is a program that got installed.
Program.
Yeah, it happened under specific conditions via a specific documented process.
And that is why we use the malware analogy. The script says programs can be identified. That is the turning point of the entire essay.
Programs can be identified. And once you can name a thing accurately, you've already taken back some of the ground it took from you.
It's a powerful thought.
It is so incredibly empowering to realize you didn't lose your judgment. Your compass isn't fundamentally defective. It just got buried under someone else's voice for a while.
Shifting the framework from a broken self to an installed program changes the entire trajectory of healing. Think about the clinical implications of that shift.
Okay.
If you believe you are fundamentally broken, if you think I am just a crazy, overly sensitive, weak person, the problem feels insurmountable. How do you fix a ruined soul?
You can't. You just resign yourself to it.
Exactly. But if you view it through the lens of this script, that you are a highly functional person operating with a corrupted file that was downloaded without your consent, that is a solvable problem.
Because you can delete files.
Yes. It removes the shame. It's a matter of recognizing the code, quarantining the file, identifying the triggers, and slowly, deliberately uninstalling the programming through new neural pathways.
It's a completely different problem to solve. It moves you from passive victimhood to active recovery.
And the visual matches this.
Oh, the final visual metaphor beautifully captures this hope. The prompt is, cracked mirror, with silhouette hands beginning to reassemble the fragments, some pieces still suspended midair.
The pieces coming together.
Yeah, and the color palette shifts to be slightly warmer at the edges. You're still dealing with broken glass, but the hands are yours. You have the agency to put reality back together.
It's a process of active reclamation. The damage happened, the hairline cracks are there, but the capacity to trust your own perception is returning. The compass can be recalibrated.
What an absolute journey this text is. I mean, it takes you right down into the basement of the psyche to show you the cracks in the foundation, explains exactly what kind of sledgehammer was used to make them, and then hands you the blueprints to start pouring new concrete.
It's a masterful breakdown of psychological mechanics.
So let's briefly trace the narrative arc we've just been on together. We started by dismantling the myth of self-esteem, redefining real confidence as the quiet, load-bearing ability to simply trust your own perception of reality without seeking permission.
Then we examined the brain's dual verification architecture and how manipulators exploit our evolutionary need for connection by forcing the brain to take the cheaper option.
Right, doubting a memory rather than facing the catastrophic reality of a loved one's betrayal.
Exactly.
We looked at the profound danger of weaponizing the petty, how tiny, insignificant lies bypass our natural defense mechanisms, creating invisible hairline fractures because we refuse to build a case against something that feels too small to notice.
And we dissected the deepening phase, exploring the mechanics of interjection, where the manipulator's voice is internalized into an automated internal auditor that haunts the victim's neural pathways long after the abuser is gone.
And finally, we found the structural exit wound in the reframe. The vital realization that this crippling self-doubt isn't a ruined personality, but merely an installed program. A corrupted file that, once identified and named, can absolutely be uninstalled.
It is a complete mapping of psychological vandalism paired with the precise tools needed to reclaim your own mind.
It really is. Now, as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. Something that builds entirely on the mechanics we've discussed today, but turns the lens in a slightly different direction.
Okay.
The script focuses heavily on romantic or interpersonal relationships. It tells us that assuming you got it wrong is the cheaper option for your brain, compared to accepting that someone close to you is lying on purpose. It's an evolutionary survival mechanism to protect a vital bond.
Right.
But I want you to consider this mechanism in the broader context of your own life. Where else is your brain taking the cheaper option?
Oh, that's an interesting question.
Are there environments, maybe a toxic corporate workplace, with a boss who constantly moves the goalposts and rewrites performance metrics?
Or a family dynamic?
Exactly. A family dynamic where historical dysfunction is constantly swept under the rug. Or even a deeply held personal or cultural belief that no longer serves you.
The same mechanics apply.
They do. In these spaces, are you quietly gaslighting yourself about the reality of the situation? Are you suppressing your own compass simply because recognizing the truth would demand a confrontation, a resignation letter, or a massive life change that you just aren't ready to have?
It takes so much energy to face that.
It does. Are you running an internal auditor for an institution or a culture just to keep the peace in your own mind?
That is a profound application of the core mechanism. It asks us to look at the malicious programs we might be installing in ourselves simply to avoid the massive energy cost of facing reality.
It's an ultimate uncomfortable question. Something to deeply think about as you go through your week. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. Keep trusting your compass. Keep questioning the inputs you receive. And we will see you next time.